You're listening to Power Producers Shop Talk, where we are refining and redefining the sales game by equipping you with the tools you need to differentiate yourself in the marketplace.
Well, it's like when we audit the mod with Logic and give them the action items that they're going to use to lower their total cost of risk.
Tactical skills that will help you provide deliverable value to your clients and prospects.
Technology is not an expense, it's an investment. Look at what Think HR has done for our clients and even our team. It's an amazing product, and I'm so thankful we have that.
And action items that you can provide to take your prospects and clients to the next level.
Things are changing for us in 2021. Not all big business anymore. Now that we have Cover Wallet on our team, it's amazing that we're going to be able to write small business profitably.
This is Power Producer Shop Talk. Production redefined. Are you ready to feel the power?
Hey everybody, welcome to Power Producers Shop Talk, where we are refining and redefining the sales game. And today, we are bringing you a series, as we have done with Mr. Josh Gurley and with Mr. Steven Sedlak. I feel like we're moving up the workers' comp ladder. You know, if you start with Gurley and move to Sedlak, although those guys are probably fairly equal in their skill set. I'm not going to pick one over the other, although Gurley, you know, Sedlak does have a book.
He's got a book.
You don't. So I have to give Sedlak the nod for that. But we're going to do 6 episodes here of Shop Talk with Mr. Kevin Ring. And if you don't know Kevin, then you should. The guy is a walking encyclopedia of workers' compensation knowledge. And I'm excited to hear what he has to say because I learn something every time I talk to him, too. So, Kevin, welcome, man. Get ready to embark on quite a journey here.
Well, I appreciate being here. I appreciate you guys having me. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of laid out everything we wanted to cover over the course of these 6 episodes that we're going to do. And shoot, we might get to 6 and say, let's do a couple of more because we didn't cover everything. But before we get into that, I wanted Kevin to talk about who he is and what his firm does, because it's going to have a direct bearing on everything we talk about over the course of the next 6 episodes. So, Kevin, if you'll take just a couple of minutes to let everybody know who doesn't know who you are, you know, who is Kevin Ring and what does he do and all of that.
Absolutely. So I'm the lead workers' comp analyst with the Institute of WorkComp Professionals. We're based in Asheville, North Carolina, but we work with agencies all over the country. I'm still looking for a referral into an agency in Hawaii that might want to invite us to do an in-house seminar.
Yeah, need some in-person consulting
at their agency. And it's exciting to come in behind Josh and Steven, 2 folks who have been through our program and others in their agency have been through. And we started in October of 2001, actually not very far from where you are, David. Our first workshop was in Orlando. And we train, certify, and mentor independent agents in a workers' comp process that helps them write more business and get better results for their clients. And it's the mentoring that really makes what we do look different. There are a ton of fantastic educational programs in our industry, but most of them have a fairly fundamentally similar model, which is you take a class or a series of classes, you take a test or a series of tests, you earn a designation, and that's the finish line. There's no kind of follow-up built into the program. And what we knew that we wanted to do when we started this was we wanted to help people actually do what they learned from us, not just teach. And so, you know, folks who come through our program and join the Institute have the opportunity to have unlimited access to our team of experts, you know, whether it's technical questions, marketing and sales questions, you know, a blending of the two, which it often is. We work with folks to help build expertise and not just knowledge.
Yeah, I think it's important too, because I mean, if you look at the traditional model, you know, like you said, it's typically you take a class, take a test, get your designation or whatever, and then it's incumbent upon the producer to take their continuing ed seriously, right? And that's where the wheels fall off the wagon, in my opinion, because I can tell you, man, like I listen to a lot of CICs because I bought the subscription to the National Alliance website to where I can get, an unlimited number of courses over the course of a year. But I listen to them. That's like, I'm not actively participating. What I, and again, I'm going to be very clear. I'm not getting continuing ed for this. Okay. So I'm not cheating the system. I'm using this for my own information, which means I can do whatever I want because I'm not having to prove that I'm in the course for a while. But I'll put an iPad up in front of my monitors and I'll listen to the CIC through the monitor, almost like through the iPad, almost like a podcast while I'm working during the day. That's not the real intent of how that should work, right? It's osmosis for me, and that's why I'm clear about the fact I'm not using it to fulfill a continuing ed requirement. But it's not the best way to do that. And I've been to the different continuing ed in-person things, and you got the people who are there. It's obvious that they're only there for the continuing education. And that's a big rub for me, man. I tell people all the time, the reason that we're an average industry is because we do enough just to get by. We don't really push ourselves to be any better. And it's very obvious. If you look at the Josh Gurleys, the Steven Sedlacks, the Christian Delosiers, other people of the world that, that we all know, these guys are pushing themselves. They want to be better. Anybody that's in Killing Commercial is there because they want to be better. And so they take it seriously that they're there. And the mentorship piece is huge. I can tell you, man, you've not seen the back end of what we do, but I've got a whole digital learning center and everything else, and it would be very, very easy for me to set that and forget it. Just turn people onto their own devices, let them figure it out as they go. But I don't.
It's not effective that way.
I spend the majority of my time in interacting with those people in one-on-one training and coaching scenarios where they've got a very specific question. And, one of the things that we talked about, and I know this is something that, the ridiculous number of mod worksheet reviews that you've done alone is just insane to me. But that's a big one, man. I was actually doing a mod review with a guy right before we jumped on to record this. And I think that it's funny because NCCI has made that worksheet really tough for people to read if they don't know what they're looking at. Once you understand how to read it, it's like nothing, it's not that difficult. But until you get past the mental barrier that all these numbers are in these different fields and you're not sure what they are, it can be intimidating. I get it. I don't understand how any business owner would have any understanding of it because a lot of the agents I know don't. So talk about that service that you guys do and sort of what your experience is. Lay the number out, man, because I don't know if I've ever talked to anybody who's done more.
Yeah, so the thing that I always tell people is when they finish the Certified WorkComp Advisor program, we're going to borderline harass them to send us mod worksheets and loss runs for accounts they're working on. And, of course, those two things work great together because there's a lot of information you can glean from them together. And right at 10 years ago, I started keeping all of the mod worksheets that I reviewed. I know initially I didn't count them, but probably 4 or 5 years ago, I paid my son, who was probably 9 at the time, a penny a worksheet to count them so that then I could keep track. And I'm gonna close the year just short of 1,200 mod worksheets that we've reviewed with advisors. And the great thing about the worksheet, and I'll tell you, the NCCI worksheet is a work of art compared to, say, North Carolina or Wisconsin or Michigan. But I understand what you're saying, is that very few people understand the information that's there. And there is a tremendous amount of information. There's not a lot that you can use to, I like to use the physician metaphor. Right, we have to examine before we can prescribe treatment. You can do a fair amount of examination. So when I look at a mod worksheet, the first thing that I look for are unresolved injuries, open claims, and especially if they're in the back 2 years, right, the older 2 years on the mod, then there's an immediate question of why are those still open. I saw one in the last couple of weeks. It was $1,500 and it was still open 2 years out, which is crazy. That should never, ever happen.
Why?
Now, is that having a huge impact on their experience mod? Probably not. but is it possibly indicative of a larger problem with how they handle employee injuries? Probably so.
Well, and if I'm the agent, just call it what it is, Kevin. If I see that and I'm a competing agent, I think it's an agent problem, dude. Like, where's the agent? Why aren't they getting involved with the carrier to find out why this stuff is happening? It shouldn't be that way.
Well, there are so many opportunities to throw agents under the bus in this process. And, I like to say for most businesses, workers' compensation is something that happens to them. It's not something they have any degree of control over, and it doesn't have to be that way. And I think it's one of the greatest benefits of what agents can bring to business owners on their workers' comp, which for most of the businesses that our folks want to work with, workers' comp is the second biggest check they write for insurance behind their health insurance. And so let's say you've got a business writes $150,000 a year check for their workers' compensation. If you ask them, why is that check $150,000, what are they going to say? That's what the bill said.
That's what my agent told me the premium was. Yeah.
Right. And if you ask that same business owner, let's say it's a manufacturing company, when was the last time you wrote a check for anything else in your business for $150,000 that you didn't know exactly why every penny of that check was there? And you weren't 100% certain that it was exactly the thing you wanted or needed to spend that money on. Mm-hmm. And insurance, particularly workers' compensation, can be the same way. Now, we can't control the rates. We can't control whatever changes the legislature does or doesn't make in any particular year. But there's a huge window of things that a business can control if they have the strategies and the tactics and the agent to help them do it. And when you can put business owners back in control and they have a process, and a process doesn't mean that everything's going to go perfectly every single time you have an injury, or every year in your program. It's not that everything's going to go perfectly, but when it doesn't, you can generally identify why it doesn't go well. I mean, my son, who's almost about to turn 15, he's a big baseball player, and he knows what a good swing looks like, and he knows what that process is. And when he takes a bad swing, he can identify why it was bad, right? And it can be the same thing in workers' compensation. If this person got hurt and it didn't go well, we can probably identify why it didn't go well and then take steps to try and prevent that from happening in the future. And the number one thing that you can tell just by having someone's mod worksheet is what is their minimum mod, and then what's the controllable mod. And it's such a huge thing, and too many people, agents and business owners, get in this mindset that above one bad, below one good. And above one certainly isn't good, because 1.0 is average, but below one doesn't mean that it's good. We like to use the report card analogy. If a 1 is average, then that's like getting a C on your report card.
I use it 100% of the time. And before you continue, I want to hit on this for a second, because the agents that are listening to this, we're the ones who set the client and prospect expectations. And Kyle and I have talked about this before, and I think we've probably mentioned it on a podcast, but the average client thinks that they're shooting for a 1. Like, if you walk in and you survey 100 people, I honestly believe at least 50% of them would say, oh, I got a 1.0, I'm doing fine. And that's not the case. Like, you don't, unless you just are going through life wanting to be average, 1.0 is not where you want to be. And so I use the same thing. I use the school grading scale analogy all the time, and I've done it with people who have mods that are in the 0.8s that think that their mod is awesome, and I'm like, about a B+. What's the minimum mod for your company? How do you know how good you really could be? In one case in particular, we found out they were at a 0.86. Their minimum mod was a 0.64. They were further away from their minimum mod than they were from 1.
Yeah, in a middle market account, that's a massive chunk of premium there.
Well, and, yeah, and on that one, I've told this story 1,000 times, but I mean that account was $500,000 in premium, and they're leaving 22 points a year on the table. Now you're not going to, in an account that size, you're gonna really have to be dialed in to go 3 years with absolutely nothing at all.
Sure.
On your losses. Can it be done? It absolutely can be, but you're not going in and representing to somebody, we'll get you to your minimum mod in the first year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever. But now you have a benchmark that's realistic to strive for. If your benchmark is 1, you're never going to achieve your minimum mod. But if your benchmark is your minimum mod, you're going to have much better results as far as what you're going for. And so, I keep going, but I mean, I'm 100% on board with the grading scale.
Well, yeah, I mean, so that's exactly it. And with your example, they're in the mid 80s, they could be in the mid 60s. Are they going to get to their minimum? Maybe, maybe not. No agent can make that happen, of course. It requires an employer that wants to do the work. The agent can only say, here are the strategies and tactics, and here are the things that I can help you do. But when somebody falls off a ladder, if the employer just shrugs and says, oh, go to the doctor and come back when you're better, then none of that stuff matters. But even on that mod that you're talking about, you could probably identify multiple different injuries where employees were out of work far longer than they should have been, where those costs were greater. The American College of Occupational and Environmental Medicine, which is the outfit that board certifies occupational doctors, they say there's 3 reasons that an employee cannot be at work after an injury. Right? So one is they're hospitalized. That does make it difficult to get to work, I suppose, unless you work in a hospital.
Unless you're an appointment setter, and then we'll just give you a cell phone and you can call from your hospital bed.
And I have seen people give folks like safety videos and paid them to watch safety videos in the hospital. But I think that's maybe a touch aggressive. But number 2...
Don't do this again, asshole.
Number 2 is that they're medicated in a way that makes it dangerous for them to get to or be at work. Or some other condition that just makes it untenable for them to do anything productive. And then number 3 is that they're contagious, which unfortunately has become more of an issue lately. Mm-hmm. I used to joke that, well, thankfully there's not really a lot of contagious occupational diseases out there. But it's one thing for me or an agent to tell an employer, if none of these 3 things are true, then they can be doing something productive. It's another for the employer to take that to heart and say, we are going to bring you back doing something productive. But that's where the mod becomes so powerful is, the first thing we were all taught about selling was that the prospective client has to understand what's in it for them, right? Why whatever it is you're selling, is going to be better, is going to put them in a better position. Well, when you can show them that this $7,500 indemnity claim where this injured worker was out for 2 weeks, if you could have brought them back in the first week, then that injury maybe would have been $5,000, so now it's $1,500 on your mod because there's 36 or 38 states that discount those med only claims 70%, and your mod would have been this much lower. You would have this much money back in your pocket, and it's very easy, and we're big fans of Todd and his mod advisor. It can show you that direct correlation to premium dollars. But don't forget when you're talking to people, if someone's at a 125 mod and they could be at a 75, the benefit of getting from 125 to somewhere closer to that 75 is almost certainly going to be greater than whatever dollar amount you map in that mod analysis software, because you're going to have access to better carriers with better rates, better rate tiers, better dividends or credits or however insurance pricing works in your state. There's just so many opportunities for them to reduce what they're paying, which ultimately gives them more capital to do what it is they're in the business of doing, rather than just giving the insurance company more money.
So when I'm interested in this answer, and then we're going to wrap up because I want to keep on schedule. But when somebody comes to you to do a mod worksheet review, how many times is that the first time they've ever gone through that exercise? If they're relatively new to your program.
Oh, it's an interesting question. I don't know. My guess is it's the first time they've ever sat down. I mean, if they're brand new, probably the first time that they've ever sat down and systematically looked at all of it kind of a piece at a time, rather than just saying, oh, well, their mod is this, or, the mod changed dramatically from one year to the next.
And so that's exactly what I figured you were going to tell me, because that's what we are taught, right? So when you go, and I'm not naming names of companies or anything like that, but when you go to look at mod analysis software, you're dealing with software salespeople, right? They don't understand. I don't care who it is, unless it's Todd Tams, and I know Todd does, but when you talk with people and they put this stuff in, they really don't understand how to use that at the point of sale, and how to use that to make a case to an underwriter, and how to use that to develop a good risk management plan to drive down total cost of risk over the course of the upcoming policy period. They've made it so easy, and Todd's guilty of this. I will say that he's guilty of this. They've made it so easy just to scan a worksheet in and have it spit out reports and numbers. And I think that's what the deal is, man. I think that we're just so used to the ease of use of some of this stuff that we forget to go back and actually compare to the loss runs and see, okay, where is this relative to where the claim ultimately ended up? What kind of information do we really have on the loss runs? What is the body part that's injured? Is that in this report? No, because we scanned in a mod worksheet. What's the type of injury? Is that in this report? No, because we just scanned it in. What was the root cause? Is there lag time? All of these things that contribute to the ultimate value of a workers' comp claim. And if you just go in and do a mod worksheet the way that the software is set up, if you just do a mod review using that software as is, all you're doing is taking information that's not been validated and putting it into fancy reports to make it look like you know what you're talking about and you have a solution for somebody, when you have nothing more than the mod worksheet repackaged in another way.
Yeah, I mean, so let me trim down my rant on this, and then we'll.
Yeah, you
we'll
just
wrap
about
up.
had me going, man. I was
It's,
on the precipice, Kevin. I was almost there.
I can appreciate that, because I've given this rant a few times, and I can feel my adrenaline ramping up where my hands start to shake. But running mod analysis, and Todd's tool is great. The other tools that are out there, do the job just fine from what I see from our clients that use it. It's not about the tool, but running a mod analysis is useful, but it's just as useful as X-raying a broken bone and then giving that X-ray to a 10-year-old child, or really any non-trained adult. They might be able to tell you it's broken if it's really obvious that it's broken, but they can't tell you how to fix it. They
True.
have no idea how to fix it. And so, I mean, and it's a problem that we have, that people have allowed themselves, either intentionally or unintentionally, to believe that the output of a piece of software provides them any degree of expertise. Right, and it can tell you the answer to the math problem. When this person got injured and the insurance company spent this much money, the mod went up this much as a result of that. But what it can't tell you is, if you want to avoid this in the future, then here are the steps you need to take to prevent that exact injury from costing that much, which is going to improve your situation. It's not going to validate that the payroll numbers on the mod worksheet were correct. It's, to your point, David, it's not going to show that every injury took more than 30 days to get reported. And why is that? Because we know that lag time has a direct correlation to the cost of the injury. all of those things. And if you're only bringing those reports, but you're not bringing any strategies or tactics on how to improve those going forward, then I think there's a pretty strong argument you're just a charlatan.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. That's a good place to end. Yeah, you're charlatans, people. If you're doing it that way, cut it out. You heard it from Kevin Ring, the workers' comp doctor himself. But in all seriousness, I think that people get excited because they'll listen to the podcast. They'll see other people that win big accounts because they're doing mod analysis and this, that, or the other. And so they want to get into that game. But they want to get into that game on their terms, not necessarily the way that it needs to be done. And my challenge to anybody in 2022 is if this is the road you want to go down, you need to learn from people. You need to learn from mentors specifically. And when I have people call me to talk about coming into Killing Commercial, I tell them 100% the same thing. There's really two things you need to have to be successful in middle market commercial production. You have to have a fundamental understanding of what it is that you're selling, period. Do you need to know every single intricacy of every policy form? Absolutely not. You can't do that right out of the box. It's just not going to happen. You get that over the course of years. If there was a way to take a USB dongle and stick it in my ear hole and download the basic manual, that would be a much preferred method for me to do that. But you can't. You just can't do it. And the second thing you have to have is you have to have a proven and replicable sales process, period. It can't be a free-for-all. And so that's one of the beauties of what we do is we build producers to the same specifications every single time. And you can go to places like, Kevin's organization to get that fundamental understanding or even take it up another notch. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Josh Gurley and I go back and forth all the time, and we say it tongue-in-cheek that if you can't sell workers' comp, you need to find something else to do because the policy itself is only 6 pages long. Here's the thing. They make up for it on the back end. The policy itself may only be 6 pages long, but there is a freaking library that you need to know about anything and everything that could happen after the fact, and that's where Kevin and his team come in and can help you. So I hope that if you're looking to go down this road in 2022, that you will reach out to him and utilize his services. I can assure you, you can do far worse for yourself than to reach out to Kevin.
Well, I appreciate it, and I look forward to the next one of these tech talks.
Sure thing. Absolutely. Everybody else, have a great weekend. See ya.
You've been listening to Power Producers Shop Talk. You can follow us at the Power Producers Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And if you want to take your game to the next level, check out our commercial insurance training course at killingcommercial.com or visit Amazon to pick up a copy of our international best-selling book, The Extra 2 Minutes.